Welcome to another show of True Democrats, the show where we kind of emphasize how or what Democrats need to say and maybe prod them in getting a little bit more aggressive and to fight back to these Republicans, something they haven't been doing in 30 years. And the results of the election show it. Once again, the Republicans have buried this country, brought us to our knees, and yet we're in a slugfest. It's even in many states, and it's hard to believe. But this year, let's hope the Democrats can unite and even make roads into these red states that have not elected Democrats in decades. But last night we had our first 2020 presidential election, first 2020 presidential debate. And it was just as we expected. The fireworks went off. And who won? Well, I think the issue is, I think both of them kind of accomplished what they wanted to accomplish for their voters and for their base. People who are independent are on the fence, which I cannot believe that anybody's on the fence in this election. I don't care if you like Biden or not. But, we have a complete time bomb going off in President Trump. And he kind of showed it in the debates last night. Biden didn't exactly shine, and I think part of that was he was susceptible to Trump's outburst, which is an issue, and he should have went in there a little bit more prepared for that. But listen, he's compared to what we have in these Republicans, he's a solid candidate. But out there in the Midwest, listen, we had an election with George W. Bush, re-election. He lost his first election because he was completely unqualified, and I think that showed. Not only in his first term did he get to have this country come under attack, but he gave away CIA operatives. He lied about invading another country, and he let the person, Osama bin Laden, who attacked us, off the hook, gave up the chase for him, and he wound up winning a re-election with the popular vote. So, you can't, like I said back then, I thought this country's too smart, we're too sophisticated. This is not the 50s or the 60s or the 40s, and boy, was I wrong. So you can't take that for granted this time. And there are people on the fence, believe it or not. What's going on in between the coasts in this country, I'm not really sure, but we can't take those votes for granted. So let's look at the debate. And first of all, I said in posts before, I think on TikTok and on another show on YouTube, that Joe Biden has to go into a strategy into debating Donald Trump. This is not a regular candidate. You just can't answer questions and then kind of retort on their answers. Donald Trump is a used car salesman. He's a daddy's boy. He's been given everything he's gotten, and he's lost everything he's gotten also. And that's why he reverts to stealing and for deceit in order to keep his head above water. So this is not the usual candidate. So you have to come in with a game plan. And one of the game plans I mentioned is that you have to ignore him. You can't go into a debate with him because you can't debate somebody who's not in reality, somebody who's dealing with something that the rest of this country is not dealing with, such as the coronavirus. And he brought it up in the debates. Remember when he said it was going to go away in the summertime? Injecting bleach. Let's look at injecting bleach. He even brought that up in the debates. Good for him. But you can't get mired down and you can't retort or retaliate against Trump because he's not dealing in reality. He's lying and making things up. The strategy has to be to focus on Chris Wallace, the narrator, and the people at the cameras focusing on you. Those are the voters of this country, and address them directly. And when Trump keeps interrupting, then you just have to ignore him. Let the fire burn out, and then continue again. And we'll kind of take some pointers of what this this debate has shown us.
Warp speed, Dr. Slawi.
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
he
Dr.
said, it's a
Redfield.
possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also
I'm
be
talking
after
about when it's
that.
generally available. Not when it
Well,
will
we're
be.
going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be
This
delivering
is the
the
same
vaccine.
man
It's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it.
First of all, he couldn't keep $400 million gift that his daddy gave him. So what is he going to talk about what the scientists and what Johnson & Johnson or Pfizer can do? He doesn't know what a scientist does. He can't even control his own books. I mean, he talked to the doc. He disagreed with the doctor. That's about as much worth as a wooden nickel.
President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing.
The CDC was not political. And when he got there, it was strong because the Obama administration made sure that it had rules to make sure that a disease and pandemic coming into this country could be addressed and could be taken care of. And he scrapped all that, and he scrapped the money for it. Now he's telling what the CDC should be saying and what kind of policies they should be having, which has been completely wrong. And the reason that we have 200,000 plus dead from this virus. So the evidence is completely against him, and he's manipulating. Notice how he turned it around. The CDC could be very political. It wasn't political when he got there. It was all about making sure that these diseases and these pandemics stay away from this country, and if they happen to get into this country, what to do about it. And he got rid of it. So now he's also dictating the scientists that are there, which, by the way, you'll see all the records or reports. Morale at CDC is completely low because every time they do their work, try to do their job and try to protect this country, this administration keeps erasing that or blocking them and writing their own record so that this president can look good, even though he's been getting 200,000 citizens dead. They've been rewriting the CDC's rules to make it political and to try to soften the blow of 200,000 Americans dying. So I'm not trying to fact check here, but I'm just focusing on what kind of points Biden has to shoot back. Now, of course, he's got to wait for his turn and to retort. Of course, strategy on how to deal with this Trump guy, we'll get into a little bit later.
We didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot.
Now, Joe Biden has to, hopefully has a list of facts in front of him. But he has to know that that is completely untrue, and that's got to be shot down completely, that young children are not vulnerable. As a matter of fact, they are vulnerable, and second of all, they're big-time carriers to give to older adults. And we just had a 19-year-old in North Carolina, athletic runner in college, find out there's a new attack that this coronavirus has neurologically on the brain. And he was a young guy in shape, and he wound up dying. He was in quarantine when he figured it out. When they figured out they had coronavirus, he went home. I think it was for 19 days. Went back to school, then woke up one day, couldn't feel his legs. His parents went and got him, took him to the hospital, and he died because somehow this coronavirus attacked his brain. So that's completely false, and it has to be, and you have to retort and say that's completely not true.
They can wash their hands, they can wear masks, they can do whatever they want, but they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country.
Let's go back to the beginning of when this virus attacked this country. Our hospitals on both coasts got swamped with patients and with Americans dying. And this Trump fumbled and bumbled and did not get ventilators and did not get the resources that they needed in order to tide the flow or to help these hospitals control this virus and pandemic. And of course, he also didn't contain it there when we closed everything down. And he talks about all these, we need to open everything up. Yeah, the point is not to spread a pandemic. This is what kills people. And I think he understands the logic. He just doesn't know what to do. He's incapable, and we see that. He's not capable of figuring this out. So he's talking about opening up the states. The fact of the matter is that more people are going to die if you open up the states. We know what to do. You wear a mask, which he did not. The CDC, by the way, which is not political, said to wear masks. That'll stop the spread or slow down the spread, control the spread. He refused to back that up, and he refused to be an example and wear a mask. So he's part of the problem of not wearing a mask and spreading this throughout the middle states, which are in trouble now. Pennsylvania, North Dakota is going up, Oklahoma, Texas, all these Idaho, all these Midwestern states are getting hit hard now because of what he was incompetent of doing in the early days. So all he's doing is he's skipping a part. The skipping the part is that maintaining a pandemic, controlling a pandemic, which is mask, which he won't do. Now he says, oh, look, I got a mask. That didn't help 6 months ago.
Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
Again, this guy is a used car salesman. Oh, we're having the best economy ever. This is a great economy. No, it's not an economy. You lost the whole service business, the restaurant business because of this. And a lot of jobs aren't coming back.
Senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
You wanna put a lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question,
left.
Will you
Who
shut
is
up,
on,
man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
This
Who's
is
on your
so
list?
right.
Gentlemen,
This is-
I think
This
we've
is
ended
so
this.
He's going to pack the
unprecedented.
court.
We have
I'm not going to give a list.
We have ended this.
The biggest mistake Biden made in this debate is discipline. You have to go in there with a rule when you're dealing with a used car salesman who's trying to shout out over you and throw around false issues, false statements. You have to be disciplined. Number one, you don't respond to him. Because if you respond to him, then you're giving him the leverage. And you're basically making these false statements have some legitimacy. You don't pay attention to him. You're talking to the camera, to the audience, to the voters, and you keep making your point. And if he keeps talking over you, you stop, wait until the fire dies down again, and then you go talk to him. And if he keeps doing it, you got to talk to Chris Wallace. Say, listen, I want my time back. I want my full time while he keeps interrupting me. And in that case, after half a debate goes through, maybe he will stop interrupting you at the end and looking like a complete fool. And there's one thing that, to digress a little bit, Reagan, back in before he won the election in '76, when he lost to Ford, one thing he got away from losing from one of the things. Look, one thing that I'm reminded of is Reagan back in '76 when he ran against Ford and lost. The one thing he took away from that experience is that people are going to vote for you if you act presidential. So if you're running for the presidency, you need to act presidential. Biden has a great opportunity on this stage in the debates with Trump to be the guy that we want to have as president of the United States. In order to do that, you have to focus on the answers, focus on policy, and focus on what is right and what is good for the American voters. And you cannot get on a shouting match or a one-on-one debate or argument with this Donald Trump, because you're not gonna win. Even though if you have the facts and all the information on yourself, you're not gonna win because he's a thug. He's gonna keep. And the one thing about Donald Trump is that he keeps repeating. So those people out in the Midwest voters keep believing it, and you need to refute it. But in order to refute it, you can't get into a one-on-one debate tussle with this guy.
Big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well,
now, we come to one of the handicaps of the Democratic Party, and that is taxes. Taxes, first of all, and Biden and every Democratic candidate has to say this if they're in a debate with a Republican, the fuel and engine of this country, what makes this country run and what makes it great, which makes it, well, used to have one of the best educational systems in the world, the roads, police, even the politics, our judicial system, which is collapsing, our infrastructure, which is collapsing, all of this has to do with taxes. The more tax money that we collect and put into the bank, the more economic power we have as a country. And we're losing that because the Republicans made a great case that we need tax cuts. And why is it a great case? What's their saying? Why would you let the government spend your tax money when you know what you can do with it? Well, nobody is going to take their tax refunds and pay the garbage man to collect their garbage. They're not going to pay the engineers to build up the bridges. They don't tell you that. And that's why this country collapses economically every time that there's a big tax cut. Reagan, George W., and the last Republican that had any guts, it turns out, happens to be the first George Bush, who raised taxes because he knew this country was starting to sink. That takes guts, and the Republican Party stabbed him in the back. And it's the same Republican Party today that says nothing. When we have a guy that lets the Russians in, we have a guy who's cheating, who associates with these guys who've been indicted, who commits 10 counts of obstruction of justice, who says that, who hints at armed uprising against this country, and the Republican Party says nothing. This is who we have. These are the same guys that stabbed the first George Bush in the back when he was trying to protect the country first and raise taxes. So taxes is an issue, and the Democrats have got to fight back and push back on this.
Millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's just yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools. Why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely.
And you can start there used to be a thing in this country called sacrifice, where we would all citizens of this country would sacrifice in order for this country to be great. And part of that is tax money. We all pay tax money. Our tax money goes into schools. Oh, but we don't have anybody in school. Why should our tax money go into school? Well, because we're making a sacrifice for the future of this country so that these kids are smarter. They learn about technology that's just been invented. They get the tools to create new technology ahead. And just to have a smarter citizenry means that our country is being better developed. They can come up and innovate. They can become entrepreneurs. And they can come up with cures for cancer, which I'm not going to do, but I'll be happy to spend some money so that our schools are strong and somebody can come up and create a cure for cancer. That's the reason for our tax money. And that has been lost, and the Republicans have drawn that out perfect. It's about their message is keep that tax money for yourselves. You know how to spend it. But the research and our CIA, everything that we know about our enemies, about how to make up cures, how to get rid of. There was a big report in one of these tax cut Republicans that we give our money to universities to study pig manure. And they said, oh my God, our money's getting wasted. Well, in those pig farms, pig manure becomes a big health issue. So you need to study it where it goes. Democrats don't push back. We need the money in order to advance. And that's why China's catching up. The Russians are in here because we have no economic power anymore. We're borrowing money from China. And that's because the millionaires, billionaires, corporations don't pay their fair share of taxes. And we need to make that an issue, especially in this election.
You the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers.
Show us your tax
I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million.
Show us your tax
1 year.
returns.
I went. You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections.
You're a liar. You can say that. I think Joe should be able to say that right off the bat. You're a liar. You're lying it, and good people don't have anything to hide. You're a liar. Honest men have nothing to hide. You're allowed to say that. Joe Biden should say that every time he comes out with a blatant lie like that.
Well, by the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was
right.
your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is
Mr.
busted.
President,
Let me finish.
I agree with that completely. But this is where you get off the rails. This is where you cannot listen to them, and you cannot respond to them. You have to talk directly into the people, and that's the point. These taxes that you're going to bring in, you're going to give back to the people. And how are you going to do that? Come up with a plan, an infrastructure plan. How are you going to spend trillions of dollars developing and upgrading our infrastructure, which needs it badly? And guess what? That's millions of dollars. That's millions of jobs for Americans. Americans rebuilding America. And that's going to put us back on a pedestal. That's going to get the economy rolling, steamrolling. It's not going to be a trickle. It's going to get people into jobs right away.
We're going to make the federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about.
The thing that would help Joe Biden immensely if he came up with some policies, and if he came up with some plans for the future of this country. One of them is an infrastructure bill, which Trump in the last 2016 campaign said he was going to do. And I said, okay, well, that would be the only benefit of this guy's presidency. I think we were all naive then. But to spend money on an infrastructure plan, you need tax money. And of course, this Donald Trump and the Republicans don't want to be taxed. So that's a problem. They need to be taxed. The corporations, I know there was a big whoop-de-doo about Amazon coming to New York. And they said, and it was an uproar when they got so many tax breaks. This is a billion-dollar company, one of the few companies that made billions during this pandemic. And they did it by using our infrastructure and using the people that this country educated. And yet they paid no taxes, so they don't contribute to any of that. They don't contribute to the rebuilding of our infrastructure, which is not right. They don't contribute to the education system, which is not right. So they take advantage of everything that's offered to them, and they don't give back. That has to be a theme at the Democratic Party, which it has been since FDR, since after the first Great Depression. And I don't know, the Democrats are too scared, but they haven't tested it. You need to talk about, again, this sacrifice of Americans for America. The sacrifice of millionaires and billionaires have to pay their dues to this country. We have the middle class and the poor who get killed overseas with defending this country with their lives. The least we can do is ask these millionaires and billionaires and corporations to pay their fair share of tax money.
I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were a
president
vice-
America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
That is perfect. So let's talk about what he's done more in 47 months than Joe Biden has. Let a pandemic in, kill 200,000, more than 200,000 Americans and counting. Scrap the CDC so we're not prepared for this pandemic or another pandemic to come, so we're unprepared. Put tariffs on our farmers, so now our farmers' livelihoods are being destroyed while China gets more powerful. We could have softened that blow if Trump did not get rid of the Pan-Pacific Treaty, which would have opened up our trade routes for farmers to find some other consumer other than China, which would have helped, and it would have kept China from growing in power and have a bigger influence trade-wise in the Pacific. He allowed the Russians to interfere with our elections. He allowed the Russians to go wandering around the White House. He scrapped the Iran nuclear missile pact, which was one of the worst ideas on the planet. Now, guess what? Iran is making nuclear weapons, and they're going to point it right at the United States of America. That made us less secure as a country. He has no plan economically to get us out of this economic collapse. And he didn't have one when he closed it too. And you have to close it in order to stop the spread of this pandemic. But you should have a plan on when to open it up and how to get as many jobs back as possible. He has no plan. So and I'll think of a bunch of other things that he did. Well, he's also making money while Americans are losing money on his hotels, while he's trampling on the lives of our farmers. We have Ivanka Trump getting trademarks in China so she can make money off of her business. So he has done a lot more than Joe Biden, but none of it any good. And he tried to get rid of our health care too. Let's not forget about that.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American.
First of all, you're getting way too into it. You're trying to, and then you're also saying made into America, made. Yeah, that's good. You're trying to make these political statements and political points using rhetoric, campaign rhetoric and campaign slogans. Listen, just make it simple. If you've studied history or if you've lived in the last 40 years, all you have to know is taxing the millionaires, billionaires, and corporations and spending on the infrastructure of this country got us out of a Great Depression and got us out of World War II and won us World War II and developed all of Europe and created all these jobs and housing for these military people coming back after World War II. That's one evidence of raising taxes and spending. The other evidence is in the 90s. If you happen to be alive in the 90s and you were there, Clinton taxed the millionaires and billionaires, and he spent on infrastructure, and we had the greatest boom since World War II that this taxing the millionaires, billionaires had caused. That's all you need to know. That's all the evidence you need to know. You don't have to go into law firms and Wall Street and all that nonsense. Stop wasting time. History tells you that taxing the millionaires and billionaires and spending on infrastructure creates jobs and creates high GDP and steamrolls an economy moving forward. That's all you have to say. Those are the facts. Yes, and make sure the millionaires and billionaires and corporations pay their dues to this country.
Even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse
number
me,
one.
Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would
This
take a
guy,
miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing.
We
Part
did
of
not
my
agree.
standard fare.
I'm the guy that
He
brought
totally
back
gave
the
up on
automobile
manufacturing.
industry.
All right, let him.
And that's brilliant about manufacturing. The first act that President Trump did before he even was elected, before he took the oath of office, after he won his election, was he gave $1 million to an Indiana company. And I forgot why he gave him $1 million. Oh, they were going to move to Mexico. He gave them $1 million, and guess what? 1,000 of their workers moved to Mexico anyway, or 1,000 working jobs went to Mexico anyway. So he gave $1 million to this company, and they still lost jobs to Mexico. So that's red flag number one. Second of all you got to do is bring up, after this guy came into office, President Trump, Harley Davidson was looking for some other place, some other country to put their headquarters in, because he's totally destroying the steel industry and destroying other manufacturers with his useless tariffs. So that's a joke. And on top of tariffs also, let's not forget about the farmers. And Biden, it would help if he brings up the fact that these farmers are getting killed with these tariffs and start naming these states: Kentucky, Tennessee, Idaho, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas. These are states that are getting crushed by these tariffs, and these are Republican senators that are up for re-election. You have to give some love to these Democrats who are trying to flip the Senate over to blue. You have to help them out, and you have to name these states that are suffering because of these Trump tariffs. I mean, that's what the whole point of the debate is to bring the Democrats onto your shoulders and to give a unified message that we need to defeat these Republicans with. We need to come out there and talk more about it and attack them more. And the other thing is, once again, you're giving up while he's talking. Keep talking, ignore him, focus on the audience and the camera, and focus. And if he gets too loud, then you stop and wait for Chris to calm him down, and then just continue again as though he didn't even talk. And if he made a false statement, like he did more for manufacturing, the best he did for manufacturing was tell have Harley Davidson look for another country to have their home base in. That's the best thing he did for Harley Davidson. And believe it or not, Joe Biden and the Obama administration supported and put up the car industry. The whole Republican Party was against it. They said, let them sink to the United States car industry. We need to let the voters know about that too. You have to remind voters.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit
China
with
ate
Mexico.
your lunch down 18%.
That's true. I mean, we're getting crushed on the lack of trade deals that this administration has done. But somebody's got to explain to these candidates, you have to connect it to the people in this country. Again, you have to talk about the farmers. You have to talk. Michigan had the best deal with all these car companies coming in there. Michigan knows it's not true, or else he wouldn't be getting killed in the polls right now. You have to mention Michigan. You have to mention Ohio. You have to mention you have to make it personal. You have to mention these states. And again, you have to help these Democratic candidates who are trying to beat these incumbent Republicans and we're trying to flip the Senate blue. This is only the first part of this debate. It gets a little bit nastier next. And I don't know, I mean, not anymore. Since this Trump came, I think everything goes. But he starts bringing the kids into it. And when you do that, that makes Trump's kids vulnerable and can be a target. And again, of course, you don't want to wallow in the mud, but it's not wallowing in the mud. You got to protect yourself against this guy. And if he's committing crimes and his family's committing crimes, you have to go on the attack, and you have to let the country know who this guy is. So until next time, this is Adam Carr at True Democrats. Let's flip that Senate blue. Let's get Biden in the White House. And once again, let's pick America up again. Every time the Republicans put us down on our knees, the country's asking for the Democrats to pick us up again. Let's do it, and let's do it the right way. Thank you.